Today is the 2nd of June, and apparently this is the official start of the British summer. We've had a very busy spring. Spring is usually April and May, and as I mentioned before, we've had a very hard spring where we had very little rain, but we've had lots of high temperatures. All the flowers were about 2 weeks early. I'm standing against a wisteria plant, and all these long shoots here are the flowers which have bloomed. Can you imagine? The flowers were that long, and these are all the flower petals which have fallen, and if you can imagine, these were over 2 feet long tassels of flowers. When they finish, what do? There are two things you can do. The first thing to do is cut off all the dead stems of the flowers. These are only the dead flower stems. They are not the shoots. So that's the first thing you do. The shoots will come later. I will show you in a minute. If you leave some of them, I can't see any signs of seed. Wisterias do seed, and if they were just left, you will get some seeds forming on them. So all these long flowering shoots have to be cut off. The reason for cutting it off is because we don't want all the energies to be wasted in producing unnecessary shoots which are not going to do anything. And especially if it's going to seed, then the seeds will take up a lot of the energy. Here you see there are two miniature seed pods which are forming. These will become long beans and the seeds will form in there. You don't want that forming. So all these long shoots are going to be cut off. So that's the first thing we do. But as I said, that's not the only thing we do. Gosh, there are nearly 100 of these stems. It's been such a prolific flowering plant this year. Now, let me show you what is going to happen next. This shoot here is the start of what we call the new shoot for the summer, which we call the tendrils. If I walk to another plant, I can show you exactly what I mean. If you look at this wisteria, look at this. These are all the new tendrils which are coming out, like that. And these fat plump buds are next year's flowers. I usually let them grow. You see, I've let this grow already about 18 inches long. That long, 18 inches. The reason why I let it grow is that while it is growing, it produces leaves, and the leaves, through photosynthesis, will feed back into the plant. Let me take you to some more wisteria plants, because we've got hundreds on the nursery. If you observed on our nursery, we have about 4 different types of wisteria. We've got the blue ones, purple ones, pink ones, and white ones. These are the white flowered ones. And you can see all the long tendrils that are being formed. I do not rush to cut them off just yet. I will leave them to grow. You see it? Already about 2-3 foot long. Look at that one. Look at these. This is just one plant. Look at these long shoots. 4-5 foot 6 long. I'm not going to cut it. I will let it produce a few more shoots just to strengthen the tree. I will leave it for another 2 weeks for it to grow, because while they're growing, it will produce more leaf and will feed back into the plant. Let me reinforce it by showing you some more wisteria. This is a typical wisteria specimen with a very thick trunk. And you can see how thick the trunk of this tree is. And this tree is never allowed to grow taller than this. You see these long shoots. Again, this is like, must be 4 or 5 foot long, all produced in the last 2 weeks. Eventually, I should really cut it back to about 2 nodes. 2 nodes, in case you wonder what the term node is, N-O-D-E. Node is this point, this point, this point. This is called nodes. Eventually, I'll cut it back to about 2 or 3 nodes and it'll produce flower there. But because I want the flowers to hang, I might end up cutting that off. But while these low shoots are growing, they will feed back into the plant and create thicker trunk, what we call a sacrificial branch. So all I'm doing is cutting these dead flower stems off. These are simply the dead flower stems for now. All these are the dead flowers. Don't mistake them to be shoots. I had a lady write to me the other day, what should I do with these shoots? She thought that these were the wisteria shoots. No, they are not the wisteria shoots. These are the wisteria shoots. But those long dead flower stems like that, that is not a shoot. That is the dead flower stem. That again, like this one, is a dead flower stem. You see the little seeds which are forming the bean seeds of wisteria? It's a leguminous plant, meaning it's a bean family, so the beans will form. So all I'm doing is removing the long flowering shoots. This was very prolific and it was absolutely covered in flower. I will try and get the editor to show you this plant when it was in flower. It was quite incredible, the amount of flower we had on this. I've seen some people cut off the leaves unnecessarily. Don't do that, because if you cut too many leaves off, the tree won't get any nourishment. This simple horticulture, nothing to do with bonsais. So these flowering shoots are the ones that I'm removing for now. But these long tendrils, I'm not going to cut just yet. I will wait another 2 weeks. When it comes to that point, I will show it to you again. So that is what we do with wisterias. Let me take you to a plant that I grew up a trellis, because that was a bonsai once, but it is no longer a bonsai now. These are my pink wisterias. Again, I'm letting the tendrils grow. Letting the tendrils grow. The reason why I brought you here is to show you what happens when you let the tendrils grow. This is a bonsai, it should only be this size, but I didn't have to cut it off because I wanted to grow up this pole here. So those long tendrils were allowed to creep up this pole, and it has been circling around the tree to form this beautiful display of flowers. So that is why I didn't prune it off. I should mention that in case you forgot what I told you in previous videos, how do you distinguish between the Chinese and the Japanese wisteria? Usually the Japanese wisteria is the Wisteria floribunda, and the Chinese one is Wisteria sinensis. The way to tell the difference is the way it twines around the stem. Now this one, if you come close, you can see this. You see how the tendrils go? This is clockwise. Agreed? This is clockwise. The runner beans do exactly the same thing. Because it is clockwise, it is more methodical. So we say that the Japanese are more methodical people, and that's why this is how I remember the Japanese wisteria. It's more methodical, going clockwise. The Chinese wisteria goes anti-clockwise. I will try and find an example of a Chinese wisteria, and let me see if I'm proved right or wrong. But I haven't had any start creeping up a pole yet, but I can assure you this, that is what it does. No, I can't see any which is twining up a pole. See, if I left these to climb up the trellis, I will soon be able to tell whether this is a Japanese or a Chinese one. What a shame I don't have an example of that. But take it from me, that is what they do. And I've shown you pictures of the wisterias that we see climbing up our big trees. They are mainly the Japanese wisteria, which is the floribunda, and they also go clockwise. Okay, so much for the wisteria pruning.